On our newscast tonight, French police continue a grand-scale manhunt to bring the two gunmen who attacked Charlie Hebdo and took 12 lives to justice. The Citi Macro Risk Index, which measures risk aversion in markets around the world, skyrockets to levels not seen since the 2008 global financial crisis. The blame falls on plummeting oil prices and fears of Greece's exit from the eurozone. To take the crucial first step towards becoming a more transparent and corruption-free society, a comprehensive anti-corruption bill passes Korean Parliament. Stay with us for these and more on Early Edition at 6. It's 6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. Live from Seoul, I'm Hwang Sang-hee.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us.
We begin with the latest developments on the ongoing hunt for the two men responsible for the Charlie Hebdo attack.
Right, they are still on the loose and are believed to be hiding in a vast forest north of Paris.
In one of the largest police operations ever seen in France, tens of thousands of officers are combing the area, hoping to find the suspects before they can do any more damage.
Our Son Jung-in starts us off.
Police have been searching door to door in a forested area north of Paris, following reports the two main suspects had been spotted there. There are also reports they robbed a gas station in the area. Police have warned local residents that brothers Sharif and Said Kawachi, 32 and 34 years old respectively, are heavily armed and extremely dangerous. While tens of thousands of police and several helicopters continue their hunt for the men, 9 people with close ties to them have been detained for further investigation. Another suspect, 18-year-old Hamid Murad, gave himself in at a police station early Thursday. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack. However, AP reports citing a senior U.S. official that the two brothers have links to a Yemeni terrorist network, and the older brother had traveled to Yemen in the past. The news agency also reports that the two were on the U.S. government's no-fly list. In a separate incident Thursday, a policewoman was fatally gunned down in a southern suburb of Paris by a suspect described as wearing black and a bulletproof vest. However, authorities say they have found no link between this incident and the assault on the Charlie Hebdo magazine. France held a moment of silence at noon local time on a rare day of national mourning for the 12 victims of the attack, as well as for the free speech they stood for. The Eiffel Tower was also dimmed for a time at 8 p.m. as a vigil continued at the Place de la République. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
A tribute paid with the pen. That's what cartoonists from all over the world are doing following the massacre at the office of Charlie Hebdo on Wednesday.
Right, they have come together to demonstrate that freedom of speech will prevail and that such attacks will never keep them from breaking out the pen. Our Lee Ji-yoon has more.
A picture is worth 8,000 words. French leading broadsheet Le Monde posted an image that says wholeheartedly with Charlie Hebdo and promised to do all it can to keep the tragedy-stricken magazine up and running. Australian cartoonist David Pope's image went viral on social media. His image shows a gunman standing over to a dead cartoonist and justifying his action by saying he drew first. Pope says nothing justifies the brutal and shocking massacre. Many of the cartoons spoke on behalf of the victims and stood up for free speech. The Telegraph's cartoonist Christian Adams was one of them. His published product shows no illustration and is titled Extremist-Approved Cartoon. This one is by an American political cartoonist Rob Torno. It shows sharpened pencils and pens being pointed against their attacker. Torno wrote a commentary on the massacre, saying the cartoonists at Charlie Hebdo gave their lives to advance freedom of expression. French London-based illustrator Lucille Clark's image shows the solidarity of her colleagues. This image was liked over 82,000 times on Instagram. Posting the image, Clark writes, "Break 1,000 will rise." Just like that, cartoonists from all over the world mourn the deaths of their fallen colleagues, but promise not to back down in the face of violence. Lee Ji-yoon, Arirang News.
Korea is moving one step closer to becoming a more transparent society. An anti-corruption bill has passed a subcommittee at the National Assembly and is likely to become law next week at a plenary session. Park Ji-won reports.
At the end of December, Korea ranked 43rd in Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index out of some 175 countries. And while Korea has enjoyed rapid economic growth over the years, there hasn't been much progress in terms of transparency. In an attempt to move things forward, a comprehensive anti-corruption bill has passed the first step toward becoming law. A subcommittee of the parliament passed the anti-corruption bill on late Thursday, 17 months after it was first introduced. The so-called Kim Young-nam bill, named after the former head of the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission, aims to strengthen punishment for public officials that are found to have taken bribes. According to the bill, public officials will be criminally charged when caught taking money or valuables worth more than 1 million Korean won or some $900. The bill extends to public officials and their families, ranging from government officials and those at state-funded agencies, and even to private school teachers and media workers. It is estimated that some 15 million people will fall under the bill's purview. Both political camps welcomed the development. Ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Lee Wan-gu said Friday the law would provide an opportunity for Korea to build a cleaner society. The ruling party also vowed to expand the scope of a special inspection bill for high-ranking officials. Floor leader of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Woo Yoon-gun, also welcomed the bill, saying it will help lay the groundwork for a transparent society. The bill could pass the Assembly's plenary session as early as Monday. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye's chief of staff has apologized for the recent document leak at the presidential office. Speaking before the National Assembly, Kim Ki-chun said he feels responsible for the scandal, which centered around allegations that President Park Geun-hye's former aide had been meddling in state affairs. Kim said he should have taken action right from the start of the scandal, which stirred for months. He added he would step down from his post once he wraps up all his duties related to the probe. Senior Presidential Secretary for Civil Affairs Kim Young-han was also called in to attend Friday's session at Parliament, but refused to show up despite orders from the presidential office to appear.
North Korea has refused to accept a resolution drafted by South Korean lawmakers that calls for a swift resumption of inter-Korean dialogue. Seoul's Unification Ministry said Friday that it tried to deliver the resolution it received from the parliament last month, but it was rejected this morning. The resolution urges Pyongyang to reduce military tensions and to return to the negotiating table for unconditional talks on humanitarian aid for North Korean residents. The ministry called North Korea's rejection regrettable as it comes amid Pyongyang's call for expanded talks and negotiations. There's fresh evidence North Korea is able to or very close to having submarines capable of firing ballistic missiles. Because submarines can stealthily glide underwater, such upgrades would pose a significant security threat to South Korea, Japan, and even the United States. Our Kwon So-hwa has this report.
Satellite pictures posted on 38 North show North Korea is upgrading a submarine to make it capable of firing missiles. The U.S.-based website devoted to analysis of North Korea says a rectangular opening around 4 meters long and 2 meters wide can be seen on the submarine which sat in the North Simpo South shipyard at the time the photos were taken. Satellite imagery analyst Joseph Bermudez says the hole probably contains launch tubes that could fire up to 2 missiles. Once the process is complete, the ship may then be tested for land attack missile technology. If the analysis turns out to be correct, then North Korea's submarine development has taken a significant stride forward, posing a bigger threat to South Korea, Japan, and U.S. bases in the region, given that submarines are much harder to detect than other pieces of military hardware. It would also mean a whole new level of missile defense planning for nations at risk. However, experts believe North Korea still lacks technological experience, and constructing missile-capable ships would be expensive and very time-consuming. Although there appears to be no immediate threat, satellite imagery also showed workers moving around the shipyard's facility over the past 6 months. This raises concerns Pyongyang is actively working on a possible naval construction program. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Staying on the topic of North Korea's military might, we're getting mixed signals from Seoul and Washington on North Korea's nuclear missile technology. The U.S. Defense Department says there's no hard evidence that shows Pyongyang has the technological capacity to develop miniaturized nuclear warheads that are small enough to fit into ballistic missiles. Earlier this week, the South Korean Defense Ministry said in its white paper that North Korea is closing in on mastering that particular technology. If such is the case, it could become a huge security threat, since if Pyongyang is able to make miniaturized warheads, they could technically be attached to ballistic missiles, which could potentially hit the U.S. mainland. Well, it's been 4 years since the United States sent aid to North Korea, and it seems that dry spell might continue. A spokesperson for U.S. aid, which is in charge of administering foreign aid to civilians, says there are no plans in the 2015 fiscal budget to provide any type of humanitarian assistance to North Korea. Washington last sent aid to Pyongyang in 2011 following a massive typhoon and monsoon rain there. It came in the form of $1.5 million to 3 private organizations that provided food and medical aid.
So where is North Korea headed with its nuclear program, and what should the U.S. do about it? For an expert's view, I spoke with Joel Witt, senior fellow at the U.S.-Korea Institute at SAIS, who currently runs the 38 North website and served as an official at the State Department for 15 years. Have a look. So in his New Year speech, Kim Jong-un expressed his desire to mend ties with South Korea. He even suggested an inter-Korean summit. But at the same time, he made clear he has no plans to end Pyongyang's nuclear program and demanded an end to joint South Korea-U.S. military exercises. So how do you assess his speech?
Well, I think it would be right to be very cautious in our assessment of what he said. He did offer that olive branch, but there are a lot of conditions that are attached. And the bigger issue here is that there's not going to be any resolution to the nuclear problem without an active American involvement in solving this whole problem. And right now, the U.S. administration really isn't involved at all.
In less than 2 months, South Korea and the U.S. will be conducting their joint military drills. If the Koreas don't make any progress by then, do you expect to see North Korea launch another provocation?
Once again, you're asking me to make a prediction, and so what I would say is that at the moment, there is no sign, at least, of preparations for a long-range missile test or even a nuclear test. Whether they would launch other types of provocations, I really don't know, but I would point out that experts repeatedly predict provocations and are wrong most of the time.
So given North Korea's steady progress in building up its nuclear capabilities, what steps should the United States and its allies take this year to cope with Pyongyang's nuclear threats?
Well, I think it's very clear, at least to me, that American policy is in disarray, and our coordination with South Korea in order to have the maximum effect on the North is not very good. The first step here is that in Washington, we need to conduct a full-scale review of American policy towards North Korea. The chances of success may be not so great, but nevertheless, the way we're approaching this problem now has clearly failed. I'm talking about a full-scale review that looks at not only the diplomatic track and what might and might not be possible there, but also a more reasonable, measured, and effective approach on sanctions, and also looking at the trends over the next 5 years in North Korea's WMD programs and making sure that we take the security steps necessary to protect ourselves.
Do you foresee a shift in Washington's policy towards Pyongyang in the coming months?
I'm very skeptical. I think the administration has other issues that it's focused on. And also, I think the administration has basically given up on trying to deal with North Korea, aside from occasionally slapping sanctions on Pyongyang. So I'm very skeptical about that. Nevertheless, one way of perhaps encouraging Washington to shift would be for South Korea to take a greater role in pushing the Obama administration to become more active. I know a number of us were hoping for that when President Park was elected, but that hasn't happened so far. And without an active American involvement in dealing with North Korea, I'm very skeptical South Korea can get very far, particularly on the issues that at least we care about, which is the security threat posed by North Korea.
Thank you, Mr. Wi, for your time today. Tumbling oil prices and fears of Greece's possible exit from the eurozone could spell trouble for global financial markets. An index that measures risk aversion in markets around the world has soared to levels not seen since the 2008 global financial crisis and the U.S. credit rating downgrade in 2011. Kim Min-ji has more.
The world's financial markets are on edge, with risk soaring to levels seen during the global financial crisis of 2008. The Citi Macro Risk Index, which measures risk aversion in global financial markets, rose to 0.96 this week in a scale of 0 to 1. The index, indicating riskier market conditions when approaching 1, tracks various financial data, including stock market volatility and bond rates in the U.S. and other emerging economies. The high rating stems from the dip in crude prices that began in mid-2014 and fears that it could spell financial trouble for emerging markets. Greece's possible exit from the eurozone is another factor. It is rare that the index soars to above the 0.9 mark. The current level matches previous records seen during the 2008 financial crisis and after the 2011 downgrade of U.S. credit rating. But with oil prices moving narrowly in the past 2 days and the U.S. job situation showing signs of improving, stock markets in Asia and the U.S. have regained some of their recent losses. Markets were also supported by speculations that the European Central Bank will institute stimulus measures. But many financial analysts expect global markets to remain unstable for the foreseeable future, given the uncertain fate of Greece and a prolonged recession in the eurozone, coupled with depressed global crude prices. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The signals are weak, but the Korean economy is showing signs of recovery. In its monthly Green Book report released Friday, the Finance Ministry said key economic indicators like production and employment improved in December. It also cited expanding exports. Now, along with the improvement in consumer sentiment in the nation, Korea's credit card spending jumped almost 9% in December from a year earlier. However, the report also pointed to the weak Japanese yen, a rate hike in the U.S., and economic woes in oil-exporting nations as external factors that could weigh on the economy moving forward.
Online comic books or webtoons are big here in Korea, and riding on the wave of that success, Korea's online-based cultural contents market is poised for massive growth over the next 3 years. The KT Economic Research Institute says the market size of the industry will double to $800 million by the year 2018. The institute took added value into account when making the forecast, such as character licensing, messenger emoticons, and the export of contents. In order for the industry to grow to $1 billion in size, the report suggests establishing a global distribution channel, either by launching a new platform or through existing smartphone app stores. LG Electronics showed off its new premium smartphone in this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Behold, the G Flex 2. It was chosen for the Editor's Choice Award by CES official partner Review.com. Android Central Express Reviews, Laptop Magazines, and other voted the G Flex 2 as a CES top pick or staff pick. Equipped with a 5.5-inch Full HD screen. The G Flex 2 is smaller than its predecessor. It also comes with a curving plastic OLED display and the latest Qualcomm 810 processor. Now, some 15 years ago, NASA launched a scientific research satellite into space to capture images of the green globe we call home. The space agency recently released some of the best photos, and they show the planet Earth in all its splendor. Our Kim Hyun-bin has this report.
This is one of the most beautiful composite photos of the Earth. The title Blue Marble combines several data and images from the Terra observation satellite in 2002. The photo dramatically depicts the place that millions of living organisms call home. But the Earth does not always look so beautiful. This is a photo from a massive California wildfire in 2013. It is the third largest wildfire on record, measuring 1.5 times the size of Seoul, and was big enough to be spotted from outer space. The California blaze wasn't the only Terra satellite captured. Over the past 15 years, over 40 million wildfires have been recorded, damaging roughly 1/3 of the Earth. Even signs of global warmings are captured. This picture was taken in 2002, showing the Larsen B ice shelf melting away. This gigantic shelf is 5 times the size of Seoul, but in a matter of seconds, it breaks apart. Scientists say it shows the severity of climate change. The photos have been captured and collected by NASA after launching its first flagship observation satellite into orbit in 1999. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, for more than 20 years now, a city in the mountain of Gangwon-do province has hosted a snow festival.
But this year's version, now underway, is a bit different than past ones. Our Shin Se-min tells us why.
There is a 100% chance of snow for the mountainous area of Taegwanryang. Tourists from all over have converged on the town, one of the biggest snow festivals Korea has to offer. Located in the northeastern province of Gangwon-do, the festival features intricate sculptures carved out of ice and snow, drawing visitors and turning the frigid temperatures into an energetic adventure. Gliding down a frosty slide, speeding on an ice sled pulled by parents, and riding a tube through the winter wonderland, these are just a few of the attractions.
The weather forecast aside, the snow is a huge draw for many, even those who are from countries known for their harsh winters.
We have 6 months of snow, so it's a little different. Our view to the snow is a little different. But yes, we like these festivals.
Posing for pictures and climbing up their favorite icy characters, and even visiting a frozen home, the bitter winds on their cheeks don't seem to matter much.
We didn't get much snow in our hometown this year, but having my children out to see the igloos they read about in books and giving them a sense of where the next Olympics will be held is educational.
Looking ahead to the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang, there are more winter activities to offer this year. But this fluffy snow and fun won't last for long, so better make plans to come out sooner rather than later. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Pyeongchang.
TGIF everyone, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. We began with a cold morning but finally got up above 0 degrees. However, as soon as the sun goes down, the mercury drops very quickly back into the negatives. Now from now on, we'll be seeing wide temperature differences between the mornings and nights as well. Now the sky looks to be clear, however the fine dust level is rising as the warm air flows in from the west. Now the readings are pretty high right now in some parts of Gangwon-do province as well. Now we can expect similar conditions over the weekend with cold mornings and mild afternoons. Enjoy it while you can because another cool spell is expected to hit us on Monday morning. Now going over to our temperature readings for tomorrow. So we'll start off the Saturday morning at -5 and gets up to 4. In the afternoon, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will top out at 8 and 9 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju gets up high at 10, Dokdo hits 5, while Mankungang dips low to -5 degrees. Well, that's all for Korea. Now here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you this week. Thank you for watching. Good day or good night, depending on where you're tuning in from. This has been Hwang Sang-hee.
And I'm Daniel Che, wishing you a great weekend. Do join us for more next week.